It was the first Sunday of July 2007 when a chilling discovery set off a disturbing chain of events. A red Ford Focus, belonging to 34-year-old Paige Bergfeld, was found in a remote, unfamiliar stretch of land. The car was engulfed in flames, its charred frame crackling under the summer sun. It wasn't just a burned vehicle. It was the opening scene of a sinister mystery. Paige was missing, and the way her car was found immediately raised alarm. The isolated location made no sense. She had no reason to be there. And even more troubling, the area around the car showed no signs of natural fire spread. Investigators quickly determined that the blaze had been set intentionally. Someone wanted that car destroyed, and someone didn't want Paige to be found. The district attorney's office launched an immediate investigation, knowing that the fire was no accident. The burn pattern revealed a calculated act, an attempt to eliminate evidence. The surrounding brush was untouched, the scorch marks isolated entirely to the car's shell. This wasn't an act of random vandalism. This was personal. This was deliberate. And it was only the beginning. What started as a missing persons case was quickly turning into something darker. Something filled with secrets that Paige had taken with her into the shadows. Just days earlier, on June 28, 2007, Paige's world was ordinary. She was a devoted mother of 3, a respected member of her community. That morning, she dropped her children off at the home of her trusted friend, Carol Linderholm. She said goodbye with a smile, her tone calm, her demeanor typical. No signs of stress, no hint that something was about to go terribly wrong. But Paige never returned to pick up her children. She didn't call. She didn't text. Hours passed. Then the sun set, and still no word. For those who knew her, the silence was terrifying. Paige was never careless, never negligent. Something was wrong. 8-year-old Jazz, Paige's eldest child, sensed it first. When texts to her mother went unanswered, the child's worry turned to fear. She begged Carol to take her to the police. There, with a trembling voice and eyes filled with worry, Jazz reported that her mom had vanished. That moment marked the official start of the search for Paige Bergfeld. As word spread, the community rallied. Posters were printed. Volunteers assembled. Helicopters scanned the fields. It wasn't just a disappearance anymore. It was a race against time. That same day, Paige's father, Frank Bergfeld, got the call every parent dreads. A sheriff's deputy informed him that his daughter had vanished. The words hit like a freight train. Frank tried calling Paige again and again, but her phone rang hollow. In a panic, he contacted his eldest son, Craig, who was across the country. Without hesitation, Craig booked a one-way ticket. He arrived determined to help find his sister. The family, shattered and desperate, united with local authorities in a coordinated effort to bring Paige home. Search teams fanned out across the region. Every trail, every alley, every park was scoured. Strangers became allies in the pursuit of answers. Law enforcement widened their scope. Investigators began examining Paige's past, digging into her relationships. That's when they turned their focus to her ex-husband, Howard Bigler. He was no stranger to Paige's inner circle. Their relationship had started back in high school. They had built a life together. But even the strongest bonds can fray, and sometimes they can turn dangerous. Paige met Howard while studying nursing at the University of Florida. He was charming, driven, and full of ambition. Their connection was immediate, magnetic. They dated seriously and soon became inseparable. Friends saw them as a perfect match. Two people headed toward a bright future. Paige, always nurturing and focused, thrived in her nursing courses. Howard supported her ambitions. To the outside world, they looked like the embodiment of young love and success. But love, as investigators would soon discover, is not always what it seems. In the days following her disappearance, Paige's double life began to surface. Beneath the polished image of a mother and nurse, there were secrets few had known. Financial pressures, emotional strains, and complicated personal choices had woven a web around her. Friends and family were stunned by what began to emerge. And as the investigation deepened, it became clear. Someone had wanted Paige silenced. Someone had gone to great lengths to make sure she would never speak again. The search for Paige wasn't just about finding a missing woman. It became a fight to uncover the truth in a case full of twists, deception, and carefully buried lies. Every detail that came to light brought new questions. Who could have orchestrated such a calculated disappearance? What did Paige know that made her a target? And just how far would someone go to keep those secrets hidden forever? After earning her nursing degree, Paige returned to Colorado and settled into life with her family. In 1995, she and Howard Bigler tied the knot. To friends and family, they appeared to be a harmonious couple, two driven, intelligent people with shared values and mutual respect. But beneath the surface, a fracture had already begun to form. Paige longed for a child, a family to build her world around. Howard, however, did not share that dream. The divide over starting a family became a persistent source of conflict. Countless conversations and arguments followed, but no resolution was ever found. By 1997, the strain had become unbearable. They filed for divorce. Despite their separation, the bond between Paige and Howard remained. Their breakup had not been marred by bitterness. Instead, they remained on amicable terms, speaking often and maintaining a close friendship. Life moved forward and Paige eventually remarried. Her second husband was Rob Dixon, a man from a vastly different world. Yet, that marriage too would unravel under pressure. After the collapse of her second union, Paige and Howard resumed contact. It was a familiar connection, built on history and trust. In a twist that would later catch the attention of investigators, Howard would be one of the last known individuals to see Paige alive. According to Howard, he and Paige had met on June 28 in Eagle County, Colorado. Their encounter, he claimed, was for personal matters, and they spent much of that Thursday together. When the day ended, they went their separate ways, Howard returning to Denver and Paige to her own life. Howard later told investigators that they had continued speaking over the phone after that meeting. When news of Paige's disappearance surfaced, Howard wasted no time. He immediately contacted emergency services. During the call, he voiced genuine distress, stating unequivocally that Paige would never abandon her children without a reason. His concern was validated by cell phone data. On the night of her disappearance, Howard was indeed in Denver, miles away from where Paige vanished. With this information, police cleared him as a suspect. Attention soon shifted to Paige's second husband, Rob Dixon. The deeper investigators dug, the more troubling the relationship appeared. During their marriage, Paige had filed multiple police reports alleging harassment. Their love story had started in unexpected circumstances. After her first divorce, Paige worked briefly at a strip club in Denver. It was there that she met Rob Dixon, a man of substantial means, bolstered by a family inheritance and several business ventures. Their romance was swift. In 1998, they married and began a life together in an opulent home in Colorado. Paige finally had what she always wanted: children. Within a few years, she was the proud mother of 3, dedicating herself entirely to her growing family. At first, the Dixon household exuded success. Lavish parties, expensive vacations, and high-end living defined their lifestyle. But behind closed doors, cracks began to show. Rob's financial empire was crumbling. Business setbacks led to mounting debts. In time, the situation grew so dire that Rob filed for bankruptcy. As the money disappeared, so too did the stability of their marriage. Tensions escalated, and soon, their problems became police matters. In 2004, Paige called 911 for the first time. She reported that Rob had threatened to kill both her and their children. When officers arrived, the couple claimed to have resolved the issue. But the peace didn't last. Just a year later, another incident shattered the illusion of normalcy. This time, Paige accused Rob of physically assaulting her while she was holding their youngest child. The brutality of the allegation could not be ignored. Rob was arrested, and what was once a glamorous life collapsed into a series of courtrooms, protective orders, and bitter confrontations. For Paige, the dream of a perfect family was no longer just out of reach. It had turned into a waking nightmare. The more investigators learned about Paige's personal history, the more layered the case became. Her life had been far from simple. Despite her bright smile and warm personality, she had lived in the eye of emotional storms. Each relationship, each decision seemed to come with hidden consequences. She had loved deeply, but she had also suffered quietly. And now, with her gone, each thread of her past became a clue, each person a potential witness or suspect. As the search continued, detectives began to map out the full trajectory of Paige's adult life. They documented every address, every phone call, every encounter leading up to her disappearance. Her cell phone records, financial transactions, and personal diary entries were all scrutinized. Investigators hoped that somewhere in those pages and logs, they would find the answer to the question haunting them all. What really happened to Paige Bergfeld? And who had the most to gain from her silence? Meanwhile, the community held its breath. Friends who once shared coffee with Paige were now clinging to flyers bearing her photo. Family members who had celebrated holidays with her now stood in candlelight vigils. The pain was spreading like a wildfire. Quiet, devastating, and impossible to contain. Every day without Paige felt like an eternity. Every lead that fizzled out deepened the despair. Yet behind the heartbreak, there was determination. No one was ready to give up. Not yet. Not while there was still hope. Rob Dixon's legal troubles deepened after Paige accused him of physically assaulting her. He was charged with third-degree assault and later pleaded guilty to 1 count of molestation. But despite the severity of the allegations, the trial was eventually dismissed, and Rob managed to avoid jail time. Still, the damage was done. The relationship between Rob and Paige was fractured beyond repair. Tensions escalated, and they soon separated. Rob relocated to Pennsylvania, putting physical distance between himself and the life they had built and destroyed together. When Paige vanished, investigators were quick to question Rob, attempting to establish a clear alibi for June 28th. Rob insisted he had been at home and denied any involvement. Detectives could not conclusively rule him out, but for the time being, there was no solid evidence tying him to the disappearance. Surprisingly, Rob joined the search effort and participated actively, presenting himself as a concerned ex-husband desperate for answers. Law enforcement, however, continued their pursuit with unrelenting intensity. The investigation had gained momentum, and one of the first key steps was a meticulous analysis of Paige's torched Ford Focus. Investigators believed the vehicle might hold vital clues, evidence that could explain her sudden vanishing. Sergeant Weiler, a seasoned detective from the county sheriff's department, noted that arson is frequently used as a tactic to eliminate forensic traces. But the blaze hadn't wiped out everything. In fact, it revealed a detail that would prove critical. The driver's seat had been pushed all the way back, farther than Paige, a petite woman, could ever need. She wouldn't have been able to reach the pedals. It was a chilling sign. Someone else had driven that car. A much taller person. Someone trying to cover their tracks. In the trunk, detectives found one of Paige's personal notebooks. Several pages had been ripped out, specifically those dated June 26th through June 29th, the precise time frame surrounding her disappearance. The implication was ominous. Someone had removed those pages intentionally. As each day passed, the urgency of the case escalated. Hope hung in the balance. Then, a break in the case came from an unlikely source. A motorist, dealing with a flat tire on a remote highway southeast of town, noticed a checkbook lying in the grass. Curious and unsettled, he called it in. When investigators searched the area, they uncovered more. Medical records, insurance cards, and other personal effects belonging to Paige Bergfeld. The items had not simply been dumped. They were strewn along a wide radius, indicating they had been scattered while a vehicle was in motion. Among the littered evidence was a business card. It seemed ordinary at first until detectives examined it closely. It didn't have Paige's name. It was issued to someone named Carrie. As the realization dawned, it shifted the direction of the case. Carrie was Paige's alias, her secret identity, and it pointed to a part of her life no one had known about. According to that card, Paige had been working as an escort. The revelation shook her loved ones, and the investigation to the core. For months, detectives had been operating on the premise that Paige was a well-rounded, hardworking single mother. But now, with this new information, that narrative had to be rewritten. Behind the PDA meetings and business ventures was a concealed world that Paige had carefully shielded from public view. It wasn't a matter of judgment, it was a matter of motive. This hidden life might hold the answers they so desperately needed. Paige's efforts to provide for her children had driven her to explore multiple jobs. After her divorce, she threw herself into entrepreneurship, launching a children's clothing business and teaching dance classes. She also sold kitchenware through a local distributor. Every dollar mattered. She wanted to ensure her children lacked for nothing. Even with her packed schedule, Paige remained deeply involved in her kids' lives, volunteering at school, leading committees, and spending every free moment she could with them. To those who knew her, she was a devoted mother first and foremost. But now, detectives had uncovered a second phone. It was tied to Paige's alias. This phone, used exclusively for escort-related business, became the cornerstone of the unfolding mystery. It contained calls, messages, and contacts that opened a door into a world no one had suspected. Friends, colleagues, and even close family were stunned by the revelation. The question looming over the investigation was no longer just where Paige had gone. It was why she had taken such a dangerous risk to begin with. What had led her to that decision? And had someone from that secret life wanted her silenced? The more investigators learned, the more tangled the web became. Was Paige lured into a trap by someone she trusted under her alias? Had one of her clients crossed a line? Or was there someone watching her from the shadows? Someone who had discovered her secret and decided to make her pay for it? With every new piece of evidence, the case took on a darker tone. Detectives faced an agonizing truth. The danger Paige had been in may have been far greater than anyone had imagined. And now the clock was ticking. The discovery of a cell phone in Paige Bergfeld's burned car quickly became a priority in the investigation. Detectives retrieved the device and analyzed its call history, zeroing in on communications made in the final hours before her disappearance. The last recorded call took place at approximately 9 p.m. on June 28th, the very night Paige vanished. From this data, investigators identified 7 individuals who had been in contact with her around that time. Among them was a man whose name would soon dominate the case, Lester Ralph Jones. His background was troubling, and it sent up immediate red flags. He had a known history of violence against women and a conviction for kidnapping. For that crime, he had served 5 years behind bars. Now, he was once again under a dark cloud of suspicion. What made Lester Jones stand out even more was the vehicle he drove. It matched the description given by Paige's friend, Carol, who had witnessed a disturbing incident shortly before Paige disappeared. Carol recalled Paige telling her about an encounter involving a white car, eerily similar to the one Lester owned. On that day, Paige noticed the white car blocking her driveway. Agitated, she attempted to back out, but a collision occurred. The driver of the white vehicle fled the scene immediately. That bizarre moment, once dismissed as a minor traffic incident, now carried a sinister undertone. Investigators began to theorize that Lester had been stalking Paige, growing increasingly obsessed with her. Their suspicions deepened when they discovered that he had attempted to arrange a meeting with her for escort services just one day before she went missing. Lester Jones was brought in for questioning. He flatly denied knowing anything about Paige's disappearance. Nonetheless, he submitted fingerprints and a DNA sample. But it wasn't just his denial that alarmed detectives. It was what they found when they searched his home. Inside, police uncovered several suspicious items. A disposable cell phone, men's wigs, Viagra, a sheet listing escort service contacts, and women's lingerie in multiple sizes. The disposable phone was particularly damning. Phone record analysis showed that someone had attempted to call Paige several times from an unregistered number on the day she vanished. Under oath, Lester claimed he didn't own a second phone. But packaging for that exact model was found in his home, and detectives traced the device's origin to a supermarket on North Avenue. Surveillance footage showed Lester buying the phone. When confronted with the footage, he refused to admit the man in the video was him. Despite this mountain of circumstantial evidence, none of it was enough to arrest Lester outright. There was no body, no definitive proof of a crime, so the case stalled. Police maintained round-the-clock surveillance on Lester, hoping he might slip up. But for years, there was no breakthrough. Meanwhile, Paige's family endured a torment that words could never describe. Birthdays came and went. Holidays passed in silence. Her children grew older, forced to live with the questions no child should ever have to ask. Where is my mother? Will she ever come home? Then, in 2012, a breakthrough shattered the silence. A hiker traversing a remote ravine in Delta County stumbled upon human remains hidden among the rocks and brush. The location was disturbingly close to the road where Paige's belongings had been discovered 5 years earlier. Authorities rushed to the scene, and though decomposition had rendered the body nearly unrecognizable, investigators were nearly certain it was Paige. DNA testing confirmed their worst fears. The remains belonged to the missing mother of 3. She had been found, but not in the way anyone had hoped. The state of the body told its own tragic story. The level of decay made it impossible to determine a precise cause of death, but trauma was evident. Multiple injuries, including repeated blunt force strikes, indicated a violent end. Paige had not simply vanished. She had been taken, brutalized, and left to rot in isolation. The pain that rippled through her family upon confirmation of her death was beyond measure. But along with the anguish came renewed hope for justice. The discovery of her body gave prosecutors what they had long waited for: a path forward to hold someone accountable. Detectives returned their focus to Lester Jones with fresh determination. The evidence, once too weak to prosecute, now took on new weight. Each lie he had told, each item found in his home, each call made to Paige under false pretenses. Everything pointed to a calculated predator who had targeted a woman living a double life, one she had kept hidden from nearly everyone. But the secrecy that once protected Paige's children from judgment also complicated the search for her killer. Now, with her body recovered and Lester still the prime suspect, the gears of justice were turning once again. As the final chapter of Paige Bergfeld's story began to unfold, her loved ones clung to the hope that the man responsible would finally face the consequences of what he had done. Paige had been more than a victim. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and most importantly, a mother. Her children had waited years for answers. Now, at last, the truth was coming into focus. The damage inflicted on Paige Bergfeld was brutal and unrelenting. When her remains were finally uncovered in a ravine, years after her disappearance, the condition of her body confirmed what many had feared. She had died a violent death. Forensic experts revealed that multiple bones had been shattered, most notably those in her face. The extent of her injuries indicated she had been savagely beaten. Her death had not come swiftly, nor without suffering. Time and erosion had gradually brought her remains to the surface, which may explain why she had remained undiscovered for so long, lying beneath the earth, hidden from the world that so desperately searched for her. In November 2014, the investigation took a decisive turn. Lester Ralph Jones, the man who had long hovered in the shadows of the case, was formally charged with kidnapping, first-degree murder, and second-degree murder. After years of investigation and sorrow, a suspect was finally brought to trial. But justice would not come quickly. The trial did not begin until July 2016, and it would stretch on for 22 days. Prosecutors laid out a chilling narrative. Lester, a man with a past steeped in violence against women, had become enraged when Paige refused to meet with him. He had tried to arrange an appointment through her escort services. When she declined, they argued, he snapped. The prosecution's case was bolstered by a powerful and deeply unsettling testimony from Lester's former wife, Lisa. She described in harrowing detail the nightmare she endured during their marriage. Lisa recalled how Lester kidnapped her, held her at gunpoint, and violently attacked her new partner. Her boyfriend was shot in the head during one of Lester's rampages. Even after that, Lester continued to stalk and threaten her. "You'll end up at the bottom of a lake," he warned. Lisa escaped, survived, and testified. Her story painted Lester as a man with a dangerous obsession and a chilling capacity for violence. Her testimony echoed eerily with the fate Paige had suffered. Lester's defense tried to shift the narrative. They insisted that police had arrested the wrong man, arguing that any number of Paige's clients might have had motive to harm her, but they failed to present any substantial evidence to support their claims. No other individual had the level of motive, proximity, or suspicious behavior that Lester had exhibited. The defense called Lester's current wife to the stand, who admitted he used escort services, but claimed she stayed with him out of faith and loyalty. Still, even she could not deny the facts. She confirmed that the man in the surveillance footage, purchasing a disposable phone just before Paige's disappearance, was Lester. It was a blow the defense could not recover from. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the jury in Lester's first trial could not reach a unanimous verdict. On September 9, 2016, a mistrial was declared, but the district attorney refused to back down. He believed in the case. He believed in the evidence. And most of all, he believed Paige and her family deserved justice. The team re-examined everything: phone records, surveillance videos, forensic results, eyewitness accounts. Their efforts were relentless. Just 2 months later, on November 21, 2016, a second jury returned a final, conclusive verdict. Lester Ralph Jones was found guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a sentence that carried with it the full weight of Paige's tragedy and the long, agonizing journey to justice. Lester appealed, hoping for reprieve, but in June 2022, the appellate court upheld the ruling. The panel affirmed his guilt and confirmed that the evidence had clearly proven his responsibility for the murder of Paige Bergfeld. After years of anguish, the legal battle was over. On April 28, 2012, long before Lester was sentenced, Paige's family had held her final farewell. Her obituary remembered her as a luminous soul, a radiant woman whose smile lit up every room she entered. Her loss left an unfillable void in the lives of her family and friends. But the deepest wounds were left in the hearts of her 3 children. Orphaned by her violent death, they had to grow up without the woman who had always been their rock, their advocate, their guiding light. The trauma of that loss would follow them forever. Paige Bergfeld's case captivated the nation. For years, it stood as a heartbreaking mystery, one filled with frustration, grief, and unanswered questions. But it also became a testament to perseverance, to the unyielding love of a family that never stopped searching, to the tireless resolve of investigators who refused to let a killer walk free. In the end, justice was not denied. Lester Ralph Jones is now behind bars for the rest of his life. He will never hurt another woman again. And Paige's story, though marked by tragedy, continues to echo. It reminds us of the silent battles so many face, of the dangers that often remain hidden, and of the power of justice, even when delayed. Her memory endures in the hearts of her children, in the voices of those who fought for her, and in the truth that was finally brought to light. Make sure to subscribe. Many more shocking true stories from around the world are coming. Stay tuned.